right. Welcome to our second episode of the weekly roundup, where the coaches get together after our coaches meeting every single week, and we talk about all the things going on in the real estate market and questions that came up in our coaches chat and ways that we've helped agents this week. And so it's good to see you guys. Mel, how you doing?
Awesome. Doing
Yeah.
very good. Yeah.
We
We're
had
one
a
day closer to spring, so I'm excited.
nice. We had a busy week of training. We had the Rainmaker Mastermind, then we had Mark
That was
King
great.
yesterday that you missed, and I think I can speak for all four of us. I'm feeling like I'd like some hours back this week.
I would love some time back this
A
week.
little overtrained, not enough time. I love Mel's message was like, I really just got to get to my database, guys. Like, I can't come see you again.
Yes, I know. I was like another training, but the symposium was so good.
Yeah.
I'm so appreciative of that.
I got a lot of ahas from that one. It was great to have those guys there. Mike, how are you doing, brother?
Good. Everything's good on my end. Yeah, same thing. Feeling a little bit like, oh man, I would love some more time back this week. But, it is what it is. The symposium was awesome. The event yesterday was awesome. Great takeaways. I think I almost took more away from the symposium than I did yesterday, if I'm being honest. But
Funny, me too. I said the same thing.
Yeah, it was really good. And it was nice. I like it when it's a small group like that. So it was good. There was like less than 15 of us in the room. We're all just kind of chit-chatting, and it was good. It was really good.
Yeah, I think a good lesson for everybody is like any chance you have at a good mastermind, especially a small group, don't turn that down. Definitely take advantage of it because you don't know what's going to come from it. Sometimes they're just whatever, and then the next time you get a nugget where you're like, that just changed my whole outlook.
Yep.
Or I'm implementing so many things from it, right?
Yeah.
I hope people listen. Oh, sorry, Jen.
No, I was going to say it's also a good reminder that sometimes sticking to the smaller sessions that are more focused on where you're at in your business are more impactful versus like the big group sessions where it's kind of surface on a lot of things.
Yes.
Digging deep in one area, you're going to get more out of it if you're in the right spot, right? So it's a good reminder that those events aren't events you should just like ignore or brush off and be like, it's not a big deal. It's usually where the gold is.
Yeah.
I got to say two things, guys. I'm going to forget if I don't say them. So one of the things is I hope people get, like, we're sitting around here as leaders, right? And we're continually learning. Like, there is continually learning. But I love what you just said, Jen, because I have this quote I heard, I think it was at the Tony Robbins thing that we were at last, but it was from Keith Cunningham. And it was that practice doesn't make perfect, because we do have those agents who love to just learn, right?
Yeah, professional students.
But practice makes permanent. So if you're not in the right space, learning what you actually need to learn, you're wasting time. Practice makes permanent. It doesn't make perfect. If you're learning the wrong stuff, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah, I love that. I'm reading his book right now, actually. I love that guy.
Oh my God, he's so smart.
Lovely. All right. Well, I want to jump right into some of the stuff that we want to talk about today. Mike, you brought up that an agent had mentioned, and it's probably not just one, there's probably multiple of them, mentioned the fear that comes around door knocking, especially when they're getting started. So why don't you run us through that a little bit?
Yeah, well, and it's a very common theme, right? On our morning calls, we always kind of chit-chat a little bit about that every so often. And every so often, a new agent comes on, and it's like they're excited to go door knocking. They get out there, they knock on the door, and then it's like the instantaneous fear runs through their entire body, right? And it's understandable. It still happens to me to this day when I knock on someone's door. It's like, oh, shoot, like, what if I mess this up? But
what if they answer?
What if they answer the door? So today we had, a conversation around it. And the conversation was about, how many doors do you want to hit? And it was like 10. And it was like, well, why so little, right? Like, what is it? And it's like, essentially what it comes down to is I'm just scared shitless to do it. Like, I just don't want to do it. Like, I'm just scared of what's going to happen if I do it, right? And I told the story. This was kind of like going back to before I was in real estate. I was cutting lawns, and I used to go and door knock in a neighborhood that I would cut grass, and I would door knock and say, hey, we're here in the neighborhood cutting grass right now. Do you want us to cut your lawn? And I'll never forget it. Knocked on this guy's door. I said, hi, good morning. How are you? He said, good. That's it. And I said, oh, I'm great. Thanks for asking. And he said, I never asked. That's what he said. I never asked. And I was just like, I literally was just beet red. I was instantly sweating. I was like, I am so embarrassed. I tried to go through my script of like, do you want us to cut your grass? And he was just like, no. And he just slammed the door on my face. And now that was the lesson I learned, is that, yes, I was scared to go to that door. However, going through that painful experience, that humiliating experience, did I die? No. 5 minutes later, I forgot it ever happened. Well, I guess not, because I still remember. But
Yeah.
anyways, it's just one of those things that it happened. And now every time I knock on a door, I always wait for their response to my question. So I always say, hi, good morning, how are you? And I wait for them to say good or good, how are you? And I base my reaction to that, right? And I've never messed it up since. And but you don't get that unless you go out there and experience it, right? I don't know if you guys see it differently. I would love to hear what your thoughts are, but that's kind of how I take it. You don't get there until you're going to be scared until you actually just do it, because that's the experience that's going to come in once you start to do it.
I
Mhm.
love that story, Mike. I love that you show your vulnerability, right? Like, I think people learn the most from us when we share our vulnerabilities and how we made, those mistakes. And
Mm-hmm.
I had something really good and I forgot
I
about it.
could even tell you the address of the house. I still remember it. Like, it's literally like I have it burned in my skull. Like, it was horrible. It was
I think
so bad.
Oh,
go on, Mel.
I know
Go
what I
on.
was going to say. I know what I was going to say. I was going to say, so many of the agents are afraid to do it, including us, right? But are afraid to do it. After they do it, though, I love that conversation. It's not like they fell in love with the activity, but they were
No,
like, people were nice. People didn't punch me or kick me or like they have these wild visions, but they're like, overall, everyone was really nice. It was so much less, crazy than they anticipated.
liberating. Yeah, it's such a relief once you go out there and do it. And so that's kind of my advice to that is
Yeah.
go out there, don't be scared, knock on that door, push that boundary, just take that step into that uncomfortable space, because the greatest things come when you are uncomfortable, unfortunately, right? And eventually you will
Yeah.
become comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
ultimately always just embracing the fear, because it might not go away. And again, like even now, there's still those moments where you say you go up to the door and you have that little bit of fear. The fear
Yeah.
may never go away. A lot of like high professionals talk about that, but it's just I embrace the fear. You learn to live with it and go do it anyway. And once you get to that level, especially after doing it enough times, you realize you've grown that muscle. It's not as scary as it seems. It's like cliff jumping. You do that one where you go up to it and you're 15 feet in the air and you look down, you're like, there's no way I'm going to do this. Then you do it and you're like, oh, that was really easy. I could do this again, right? So I
Hmm.
think that it's just continually doing it. What do you think there, Jen?
Yeah, I think it's a combo of what everyone's saying, right? Like we all have fear. We're people. We don't, and most people have a fear of rejection, right? Nobody likes to be rejected. It doesn't feel good. And then you add into it that you're already doing something that you're not skilled at, especially as a new agent, because you're learning how to do it, and you have to go and do it to learn how to do it. So you literally have to fail forward, like kind of like what you did, Mike, right?
Hmm.
And then you add on to that everyone has that fear, and basically the way our brain is wired is to tell us not to do the thing that makes us feel the way fear makes us feel. It's keeping us safe. It's built to do that, right? That's how our brain works. So you add that in, you're like, okay, so I have this thing that I don't know how to do, that will put me into the situation that gives me my biggest fear, which is rejection. And my brain is literally going to go, don't do that because that makes me feel bad. And you're going to have to combat all of those to go and do the act. So this simple act of just knocking on the door, that sounds so easy, you're actually working through all of that psychologically and emotionally just to do it. So it's actually quite a large hurdle, right? What happens is every time you do it, you realize, as Mel said, this isn't so bad. I didn't get kicked. I didn't get sworn at. No one slammed the door in my face. And you keep doing it. You reprogram the way you see the activity. And what happens is, as time goes on, what you start to tell yourself, and why it becomes easier to live with that fear, is because your brain now goes, okay, yeah, I've done this before. And my worst case scenario is no longer, being chased down the road by somebody yelling at me. It is now they're going to say, like, I'm not interested, in slam the door, because I have actual data to tell me what's going to happen, and it becomes more comfortable. But if you're not willing to do the work to get to that place, you're never going to be successful at that task. You're just not doing the work psychologically to get yourself there, right? So it's an easy thing to talk about, but it's a big conversation, especially for new agents who haven't come from a sales background specifically, right?
So this is what I want you to think of yourself is like somebody in this transaction is the driver. Like somebody is driving and guiding this thing from point A to point B, right? So imagine, I said, if that finance question, I ask about the finances, but I don't care what the answer is. Like I don't care whether they say yes or whether they say no. um, that isn't the outcome I want from this question. So I will ask them about the finances, and they can give me a simple yes, I have, or yes, I know, yes, I did, or no, I didn't. And then if they say yes, I did, I say, you know what, that's fantastic. I'm glad that you found someone that you trust. Just like, God forbid, if you find out something about your health, it's a big deal. And you're about to get into investing, and that's a big deal. So, one of the things I offer my clients is a checkup from the neck up. Like, I have a mortgage broker. I'm good. I can connect and make us the appointment. I'd love to be on the call to make sure we're getting all the right questions answered. But it's totally fine. I understand it's personal. So if you want to be on by yourself, not a problem. But let's just take a look at what you're about to do and see, is there any opportunities that have been missed by your first consultation? It's something we do, there's no obligation. Let's just make sure that my most important thing is to make sure you're in the best, you're in the best case to move forward in everything we're about to do. Do you see value in that, Lucy? And then she's like, yeah, I do, right? I said, and then you set the appointment, right? Say to her, whatever, you're going to have that partner that you trust, that mortgage partner. And it was interesting for me to look through your slides, Mike, from the other day. And they're saying what I've been like touting for freaking ever is about these relationships and partnerships. So that was great. But that helped her. She really saw that. I said, you see, I don't care whether she knows it's 90 days or 120 days. That's irrelevant to me. It's just a touch base. It's taking her, and it's that valet. You are the concierge throughout this entire thing. Don't say, here's a number of a mortgage broker, go give them a shout. You've completely lost control of it. It brings me a question because it's so up. What do you mean up? Up from what? Because we are up from certain areas. Like what are you talking about?
Right.
Like what
So
are the
he's saying year over
parameters?
year, his parameter is year over year prices.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So year, like from this time last year. Well, I guess, yeah, I think it was year over year prices. I think that's what he was trying to say. Like he was trying to say like long term wise, the real estate market increased last year 11%. That's what he was saying.
I think that's
And I was like,
nationally. That's not the
yeah,
Toronto report,
nationally.
right?
Yeah. That's what he's saying. Is
Yeah.
it increased nationally 11%, which is great. Yeah, it did. But now go tell a homeowner in Newmarket, Ontario, that their home went up 11% last year. They're gonna be like, "What are you talking about? It did not." Right?
but
So
the
it's like it's great.
what
I love it, but it's not the reality. In
what
certain
I
pockets,
love
in
about
certain areas, it
that
did.
what I love about that is maybe it is the reality. Like I love that, like for certain populations, like
Right.
statistics, I always say the exact very same exact statistics can tell
Hmm.
multiple stories and opposing stories at the same
Right.
time. So I always
Right.
tell agents, before you pull those stats, you need to know what that story is that you want to tell with them. Because
Hmm.
if you have a savvy, look at my glasses. If you have a savvy buyer, if you have a savvy lister or buyer, they're going to be able to see through those stats. So make sure that you know what that story is, because you're absolutely right. And I think you're just showing it right there.
No, and I agree with that. Like, and it is like it is about that story that you're telling, right? And it's what
Mhm.
story do you want to tell? And for me, I love the numbers, and so when I look at the average price of a home, I try to show that story of like, okay, this is where we were in January, this is where we are now, right? And Mr. Homeowner, where do you think we are? How does that feel for you? There we go. Yeah.
One of the things that came up on the call today too, and it was Christina, and she would said, because I think I was bringing up the slides, and I said, I've gone through the slides and like just cursory, and I really love some of the ways they're highlighting about lead gen and having those conversations. Remind me of a challenge. So I left them with a challenge, but one was open houses. And I said, open houses, I mean, I can't get, I've got this hankering about opening open houses, but just the opportunity, right? That they provide. And Christina made a great comment, and she said, well, the problem is that, everyone snaps them up so quickly. I love when people say stuff like this, and I'm like, whoa. I said, so the realtors that are sitting and waiting for the business to come from them, 100% are waiting with bated breath for that open house to be posted so they can snap it. And then we went through the, what kind of buyer are you looking for? Find that open house. I used Mike. I said, Mike's got an open house in an area that had, like, if you want to deal with first time home buyers, don't offer to do an open house on a $3 million property. Look for the property that's going to attract the buyer. Send Mike Russo an email and say, hey, Mike, I see you're listing on I think I said 123 Lovers Lane. So I see you're listing on 123 Lovers Lane. And I'd love to do an open house Saturday and Sunday, and I said, don't say 2 to 4 or whatever, like pick a substantial, you're putting an investment in it. So treat it as such. So this amount of time, tell Mike what he's going to get from it. Mike, before I leave that open house, I'm going to lock it up, and I'm going to, before I leave the property, give you the feedback. So you can have the feedback right away to give to your, make it a win-win for Mike. He may not have thought of an open house or whatever, and he's going to ask. It may work, it may not, but you're doing something to generate that business. So I know we've said this 1,000 times before, but it was like an aha to her. And then the other
That's how it goes, right? Before you keep going, that's how it goes. You can say it a million times, and then it's like when everybody's ears are finally ready to open up and embrace it, then they hear it, right? That's why we got to keep saying it.
That's right. And a cool challenge I left with them. I don't know if I didn't really identify it as a challenge for you, but I suggested they go through. We were talking about conversations that end with someone, like I'm talking to Mike, right? I'm talking to Mike, and Mike says, this just happened to me the other day, by the way. And it's like, oh, sorry, I called, but I thought it was for something else. So apology. It was about me getting agents. Well, the guy who called me isn't an agent. So I don't know why he called me. He saw 600 figures and I'll help you grow your business. So he called me. He's a real estate investor, though. It's because I said to him, at first he said, oh, no, I'm not a real estate agent. I apologize. That was a misunderstanding. And I said, it was actually on text, on email. And I said, no problem, right? Like, I don't think I said no problem because I wouldn't say that anymore. But I said something to the effect of
leveling up your language.
That's right. But something to the effect of absolutely, happy to have connected. And then I immediately, thank goodness, clicked in and I said, you know what? You just want to mention it. We deal a lot with investors, and our investors are buying, and you're an investor anyway. It rolled all the way into, I said, let's have that conversation we were going to have Wednesday. It's not about you working on the team, but let's have that conversation. Maybe there's some way that we can connect and I can help you out. Had the conversation. Long story short, ended up booking him in for a call on Saturday with Danielle, Jack, and Rob, and he's off to the races. So the whole point of that conversation was, so often in our personal conversations, like our face-to-face, or our emails, someone says something like Mike said, oh, no, sorry, I'm not interested in that. We say, good enough, and walk away, right? Like, we say good enough. We don't stay curious in those situations when people tell us it's over. So I said to Christina and Lucy, I said, I challenge you to go into your DMs, go into your texts, look for the conversations that ended that way, because we weren't thinking in that moment. There is nothing wrong if you walk away, then come back and say, even if it's the next day, the next week, it's like, hey, Meredith, it's Melissa. I just wanted to reconnect with you. I have not been able to stop thinking about you since we last chatted. I know you said you weren't listening or you weren't looking to buy, and I totally forgot about this amazing service we offer our people, which I think would be amazing for you. Can I give you a call or whatever? But just to revisit those ones we shut down only out of habit. Right? When someone tells you I'm not interested or no thanks.
Yeah, and the same, like, they shut themselves down, right? And then you just kind of take no for an answer without exploring or giving them more options or different routes to take. You're like, oh, that's a dead end. But what if I showed you these 2 other routes you could take? And sometimes we forget to show them that there's other roads they can take, right?
Yeah. I bet you, like, everybody's, mine, yours, everybody's database has these little golden nuggets of opportunity in them, because you're just not on all the time, right? Sometimes you're not doing it as well. But anyway, that may be a good challenge if you want to put out to them.